Today I want to do something unique and I wanted to share 10 tips for Elementor and actually have more, but I decided to just keep 10 for this one, and probably if this video does well, I'll add more in future. Just leave in comments how much you already knew of it, because these are going to be very basic ones and I wish I knew this when I started creating websites. So let's get started. If you do not have Elementor Pro and if you do not have the option for custom CSS, what you can simply do is you could add an HTML widget and then type this style and then add your CSS in here, and suddenly you don't need the custom CSS option, but your CSS, that whatever you add in here, would just start working. And you would find me using this as a lot in my tutorials because I make sure that my code works for the free users too. But again, if you want to buy Elementor Pro, the link is in description. If you use the link, that way you could support me. If you do not have Elementor Pro and you want to create this sticky effect where this element stays in the container and it sticks to the page, then all you simply need to do is use the previous trick, and rather than using this one, so let me remove the stickies, you could see it does not work anymore. So what we can simply do is we can add the HTML widget as we did in the previous tip, like this, type style. Make sure to give it a CSS class, so I'm just going to call it as DM sticky. And the way we target is by typing .dm sticky. We type position sticky and then we type top, and this is where we show how much the space should be from the top when it sticks to us. So if I do 0, it's going to be 0 pixels from top, like sticking like this, you could see. But if I do something like 50 pixels, then it would be sticking 50 pixels from the top. And you could say it is now doing the same effect that we did with Elementor Pro without having Elementor. Just keep in mind that if you go into this container and then if you give it overflow hidden, it's not going to work anymore, because for position sticky, overflow hidden does not work. So there are some themes on the market, I think one of it being Astra, which adds like a CSS called body overflow hidden, like this, to the whole page. And when this body overflow hidden is applied to the whole website, right, so the whole page, so it's not going to work if you're using Astra. But another way to do it is by simply go to overflow, click visible and do important, like this. So type body overflow visible !important if you're using a website or a theme that uses body overflow hidden by default. So when we type overflow visible important, we are just saying that overwrite it, whatever that is added. Okay, so just try it this one if it does not work with just this much. Well, my client just sent me a message saying that he doesn't like this text anymore and he wants it to be in orange color and different font. Now I have to go in here manually and change it to an orange font which he likes, and then I need to change it to something that he likes with a different font. Now I have to do it for every single one of them. It's kinda annoying. I don't want to do it one by one. Well, I can tell you there's an easy way to do it. First, select the text that you have done the styling. I've set this to orange, and if I click on this plus, I can actually create a new global one. So I can call it as orange theme heading text, something like this, and this is orange heading text, and this is going to be the title text. So let's call it as title text, something like this. Now if I go in here and then select as the orange one and then the title text, orange one, and then again the title text, orange one, and then the title text. If I would have done this step by default, then I could have simply gone into my site settings, gone into my global colors, and okay, I can just hide this by default and then click on this one and then change it to, I guess, a green color, because my client now wants, I guess, a blue color. And then I can simply just go back, go to global fonts, and now I want to use the rubric because that's what he wants to do again and wants to make it bigger. And that's pretty cool, right? And the best part is that if I've used this other page. If I use this in any other page, it's still going to do it for the whole website. So if I had a 20-page website, it would do it for every single 20 page where I've used this global option. Okay, so I have this text. I don't want it to be black, so let me just clear it. Oops, wait, why is it doing that? Let me go back. Let me clear it. Wait, why is it not going to normal? Well, there's a setting in Elementor which does this, where it does not make it go to clear. And why would you want to go clear, right? The answer is simple. If I add an HTML widget like this, if I add something, let's say text, and if I type a CSS class or CSS styling format text, I want it to be color red. It's not changing. Obviously, I can overwrite it by saying important. Well, it's not still doing it. Let's go to text. Let me just make it DM text just to confirm. And it's still not working. And the only if it wasn't using this styling, I want to change it back to the basic and it's not working at all. Well, the answer is simple. Go to your dashboard, go to Elementor settings and make sure to enable this one. And let's save it. I'm going to just update this page and refresh it. Now let's see this. Now if I click on it, go in here and then do clear, it's automatically turning clear. And then we got our DM text. DM text, it's still not working because it's an H2. So we probably had to do H2. And you could see now it's changing with our code. And if I just want to use the default one, I can simply choose it manually. So it's a win-win situation. So I just got a message from my client and he likes this design, which is 3x3. He just wants 2 more. So let's do 2 more because he has totally 9 stuff. And yeah, this looks perfect. Let me just go to the tablet and wait a second. Why is there a gap in here? Why is there a gap in here? And why is there a gap in here? What just happened? Why is it not working? This is not something that I want. My client wants it to be 2x2 for tablet, but it's not taking any space. So I can simply delete this one. I can actually change this to flexbox to grid and make every single one of them to be 100, 100, and then 100. Go in here and now I can simply just say it is 3x2. So now let's do 2. I just simply have to duplicate this much, duplicate this much, duplicate this much. We got this. If I go to tablet, we need to actually make each one of them to be 100 again, because by default we had 10. We didn't do that by default. So let me just copy and paste this quickly. Now all of this is 100 by 100, but we want it 2 by 2. So let me go in here and set this to be 2 by 3 now. So there are 2 columns and they are going in order perfectly. If I go to the mobile, I can simply set to 1 and it's faster, works nicer. You have to make sure that the grid is enabled in your Elementor for it to work. And another thing, we can actually do this with Flexbox too by using wrap like this. But then we will need to play around with these values to make sure it works nicely. And I actually have a dedicated video for just this much where it shows how to use Flexbox to create this wrap by using this wrap and then making it go one by one. And now if I go to my mobile, it's not going to work because we had done some changes, right? For the tablet. So we need to make sure this is like 48 or something and then 48, something like this. And it's automatically going to do is work in a single line, rather than keeping an empty area like this. Again, I actually have a dedicated video just on wrap, which showcases you how to do it with Flexbox and wrap, and it makes you understand how it works. It's very easy to learn and it's very commonly used stuff. For example, anything like showing your services, showing your products, showing anything that has like this great fashion, even an image gallery. Lots of people don't know this, but if you click on your any element, go to advanced and go to transform, you could actually do a lot more stuff in here. You could rotate your element. You could do offset, so you could make it offset on XY like this. You could do scale. You could do skew. You could do flip. So if you have an image that you want to flip, so rather than going into your Photoshop and doing it in your image editing software, you could just do it in here. You could even flip it around here. And you could even change the anchor locations if you want. But one more thing that you could do is if you go to hover settings, I can just make it, let's say 10 and maybe -10, and you could create an hover effect for every single one of them. So if you see in here, we do not have an hover effect for our heading. So what if I had a text and I wanted to do hover effect? Simply go to advanced, go to transform hover and add something in here. You could make the duration something. It's in milliseconds, so 1000 millisecond is 1 second, and you could see it goes like this. So just creating nice interactive effects, you could do that. This is a new feature that Elementor added and lots of people just didn't know about it. For example, I want this whole container to have a link. I can simply go to this container, additional options, go to HTML tag and type a link. There is a warning which I'll show you why is there a warning. I'll just copy this one and paste it, and it might look normal in here, but let's do preview and you would see it would not actually work. If I scroll down, you could see it's a bit messy. This went out. If I remove my learn more button, it should work. So you could see the link is applied to this whole stuff. And if you combine it with the previous one, if you go to advanced, transform, hover, and then to -10, you could actually create a whole container with a nice hover effect, and which shows you that this is a link like this. But why did it not work when I added a button? Let's say if I copy this button and paste it in here, it's suddenly not going to work, because if I go to this layout additional option, don't add links to elements nested in this container, it will break the layout. Basically what it means that you shouldn't add any link into these elements inside of this one. So this text, you can see no link has been added. This one, no link has been added. In this image, none is selected. But if I, let's say, remove this button link, I think it should still break, because by default button has a link even if you remove it. You would say it still breaks. See, so what can we do instead of using this button? We can actually add a heading widget like this. Call this as your learn more P, to the same pink color. I'm quickly going to select a random one and then do stuff. And now this would not have the issue that we are facing with this one. Let me do some styling. I don't know if I just copy paste style, will it work? Okay, it works. And you would see that this one has the same effect that these buttons have, but this one does not have the link. So if I do preview now, it still has that button, but the layout is not breaking. But this one has a arrow in here. You could do it simply, just add a container at the bottom like this. Add the icon in here, make it go left to right, and then basically inside of this you just add the icon manually like this to arrow, and then you could just style it to match it this one and have no link in here. So remember, every time you add a link in here, no elements inside this should have a link, and that way you could add a link to this whole container. I want to create a container now. Let's say if I create a container and I give it a color of red, or what is this, red color, and then I want to give it a blue color on top of it, and probably make it opacity 1 like this. So when I hover on it, I'll simply just make this be 0 like this. Now obviously we can do it with 2 colors and we can limit ourselves to 2 colors, but why stop on 2 colors? If you know CSS, you would know that we can add any amount of background colors as we want, and you would understand why this is good. So I'll just add an HTML widget. I'll go to this container and I'll call this as DMBG. So as a background, I'll remove the stuff that we have added in here. So no color is there. Let's type style. Let's type .dmbg. Let's give it a background of blue. And suddenly our background has a blue. But what if I want to add more? I cannot do just comma and add red. Okay, there's a way to do it. If you search for CSS linear gradient, this site shows up cssgradient.io, and here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to remove this one, which is the middle one. This one basically allows you to create a linear gradient. So let's say if I copy paste here, this one has a linear gradient just as we are seeing in here. Let's make this blue. I'm going to copy this and paste it in here. Now it's like a solid color. It's a gradient, but it's just same color. I can just copy this and paste it in here. And we got a blue color. Now, if I make this to be red, something like this, copy this, paste, and if I copy this background linear gradient, not completely, just this linear gradient section, go in here, let's do comma and let's do enter. I like to do comma enter because it keeps it organized. So if I make this bigger, this is how I have organized it. Here's a comma. Only the last one should not have a comma. It should have a semicolon at the end, the last one. So right now, what's happening is that we have a gradient blue and on top of it, we have a red color one. Obviously, it's not showing because the blue is on top of it, right? So if I remove this and made it at top, do comma and then semicolon here, you can see I just changed the direction of it. But then is it useful? Well, there is one way to find out. What if I make this color to be transparent completely and probably add one more in here which would also be transparent like this. And let's do 50 and add one more in here and make it 52. So now there are 4 values. Basically 0 to 50 is transparent and then 50 to 100 is red, and it creates this kind of design. Let's copy this. Let's paste it around here. Obviously nothing is showing up, but what if I should place it on top? So let's place this at top. Let's do comma and then close it. Now you could see what just happened. I just layered 2 backgrounds on top of each other. So this one I placed it on top of this one and I placed this one at the bottom. And you could do is create interesting shapes with that. If you search for CSS background pattern and probably go to any one of it, and probably let's use this one. I selected copy CSS code. I'm just going to see what they have made. And here it is. So I'm just going to copy this linear gradient and then place it on top of my background like this and do comma. Now the reason why it's not looking perfect is because they have actually used, instead of using white, instead of using transparent, they have used white color. Let's say if they have option to customize it. Okay, there is. So this back color they do have, but they do not have the option to change it into transparent. Kinda annoying, which is, so wherever we have E557, right, in this one, we can simply just type transparent like this. Now you could see what just happened. I just created a pattern on top of it, which is provided by this one. And again, this is not limited to this one. You have like so many cool patterns that you could find with CSS. You could even create like unique patterns, and you can see so many cool stuff that is provided in here. So we have a pattern on top which is going from left to right. Then we have second pattern which is red color, which basically starts from 50, and the final one is just blue color. And this allows you to create unique stuff. And what's even crazy is that if you go in here and type URL in quotation marks and do comma, here we can add any image on it. So if you have an image pattern, or if you have an image that you want to make on top of your background color, you could add the URL on here. So let's see if I have anything. So let's say I have this logo, right? Let me just copy this. Let me do this. Oops. Okay. In the URL, I'm just going to paste the logo that I have. And now I have my logo, but now the issue that we face is it's not looking good. And it's very easy to do. If you know CSS, there are some functionalities that are provided by CSS. So let's say if I just go in here, if I go in here and select an image, okay, just to show you guys, let's say I select this cat image. You can see we have position, we have repeat, we have display size. All of this stuff is just CSS, but Elementor just makes it easy by just selecting it. So anytime you select it, Elementor does the CSS for us, right? So when we are doing it manually, we have to do it ourselves. But we have how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So now we can simply just type background size. Remember, type in DMBG because we want to control that, right? If I type 10%, do 100%, 100%, 100%, what's going to happen? The first one is going to be applied to this one. The second one is going to apply it to the second, third, and fourth, like this. So if I make the one to be 200, you could see what it did. If I do like 10%, it's creating like a weird pattern. But this is how we did this. Same again, background position, background repeat, anything, just have 4 times. So the amount of time you have these backgrounds, you would have to type it for each one of them. And you could create like unique stuff, okay? So if you have a pattern that you want to just add it on your background, you could add it like this and create some nice stuff. One more thing that I want to show you guys, that you can create remote arrows for your carousels. So for example, I haven't created any like preview here, but let me just show you the video instead. I don't want to create it again, but basically you would create any arrow for your carousel anywhere on your page. So rather than using the default carousel arrows that is provided by Elementor, which are not good, you could create anything, not just these arrows. You could add any image, anything that you want, and just every time you click on it, you could see you can change it like this. So this one is a cool stuff. I've already have a video made for it, so check that out. Now for a shameful plug for my website, you can actually, instead of downloading plugins to have some specific feature, I actually have lots of stuff that is done without any plugin. And that way you keep your website like faster. You do not have to worry about any plugin issues and all that can come in future. And there are lots of stuff that are provided by plugin, and instead of doing that, you could just use the stuff that I have created. For example, one of it is off canvas, which is now available in Elementor by free, I think, so you could use that too. You can create pop-up for free with Elementor. You could create animated vertical timeline for free. And by the way, we are just using code, which means that you do not have to worry about any plugin issues. Then we have this horizontal vertical click accordion, which by the way is provided by lots of templates, lots of plugins, but they're not as good as this one. You could see it is very customizable. It is a paid template, but there's a free tutorial on it, which you could just make it manually. Same with this one, image accordion, this floating sidebars. You see custom image compare. You know, there are lots of image compare stuff, but again, it is not as customizable as this one. For example, if I go down, you can now create your stuff. You could actually create any design in here, and you could compare any two stuff. You could even add like 2 containers behind it. And for the bonus one, the final bonus one is, rather than creating your website directly in here, create it in Figma. It's a free tool that you could just play on the browser. And the best part is, if you just search for Figma free resources, something like this, and go to your Figma stuff which is created by community. So if you go in here, you could see there are lots of stuff which is created by community. And this thing is, this is not like a direct website. It is basically only used to create a layout and all. And it's so much faster to create something in like an image editing software or something that is like Figma, rather than creating directly in here, because you have to go in here manually change stuff, right? But in here you could simply just drag and drop and just basically create it. So if you go in here, let's see, there is a product mockup. If you just go in stuff like this, I'm not able to click on here, but basically in Figma you could create your own layouts pretty quickly. It's just like an image editing software, you could think of it, but made for website or UI related stuff. And it's much more faster, especially with like so many resources that you could just find with just icons and all. You could simply just add the image pretty quickly in that, rather than downloading and adding it to your website. And once you have created everything in here, then you could start copying it and try to make it with Elementor. So just keep in mind, do something with Figma. It's very much better to make it in Figma. It's just much more faster. It's easy to learn too. And yeah, that's the bonus tip. And this was the 10 Elementor tips for me. If you want more, leave it in comments and also let me know how many of this you already knew. So yeah, thanks for watching.